Dude, which car or truck should I buy if I want it to last a very, very long time?
Question is forever cars, or trucks for that matter.
Yes.
What will last the longest? Well, we actually have a way of finding out, kind of.
Yes, because our friends at iccars.com once again came through and they used their vast database of data to pick out the highest average mileage cars. These are the vehicles over the last 20 years, but they had to be at least on sale for 10 of those years
Right.
that have the highest mileage on their odometers.
So this is both cars and trucks that are going to be combined in the same list. Now, here's an important point to keep in mind. There are a lot of very reliable cars that are out there right now, but they haven't been around for 10 years. They won't be on this list. And there are a lot of crappy cars that are not on this list for good reason.
Yes, and this is the top 20. We're going to start at number 20 and go all the way to number one. And we're going to do it rapid fire.
Yep.
And number 20 on the list is this Toyota Camry Hybrid. Specifically, it's a hybrid.
And there's a really good reason why these cars are so well known for having tons and tons of miles. And that is because, say it,
Uber and Lyft.
bingo, exactly. These rideshare companies using this car, it's a very intelligent thing to do because they get phenomenal gas mileage and they have good passenger and luggage capacity.
Yeah, so for example, I go to New York City, Manhattan quite often,
Yeah.
at least for the auto show.
Yeah, and to get mugged.
And also visit my sister.
Right.
And these cars are really solid, usually really high mileage. I've been in some of them. And also, they don't rattle as much as some other cars.
Yeah.
You get into some other cars, I'm not going to name names. And, you hear the doors jiggling.
Right. There's
And
bolts like inside the door or whatever. And yeah, you hear
but
things.
These Camrys are usually like tanks, basically.
Yeah, they are solid vehicles. There's a very good reason why Camrys have a solid reputation. So that is number 20 on our list.
And lifespan average for a Camry Hybrid is 230,000 miles, 547. So about 230,000.
Yeah, 230 and change.
Number 19 on our list is
Big surprise here.
it's a Ford F-150.
Now, just so you guys know, we know that there are a variety of different types of Ford F-150s. There's a hybrid, there's a diesel, there's a gas engine, well, a bunch of different gas engines.
Yes.
Yes, and there's an electric one, yes. Essentially, this is all combined in terms of over the past 10
Yeah.
years.
And of course, it's our first truck on the list.
Yes.
It's a proper truck, body on frame.
Right?
Average lifespan, at least from this data, they analyzed over 2 million vehicles, actually, is 232,000 miles plus
Right.
for the F-150. And of course, it didn't specify which one. It's just an average.
Exactly. And I think what they're doing is they've kind of created an aggregate where they bring in everything and just kind of put it there and funnel it in. So because they didn't specify.
Yeah, I actually thought this might be higher on the list. 19 seems a little bit low because there's so many of these trucks,
But
right?
there's so many cars and trucks out there.
No, but this is the most popular vehicle in the country on sale now.
And here's the irony. The least popular pickup truck sold in America is next on the list, is actually one step above the Ford F-150.
Which is the Nissan Titan. So I guess my assumption was completely off base. Okay. So number 18 is Nissan Titan.
The Nissan Titan is a very simple vehicle in terms of its powertrain. You basically are getting one, well, technically two now. The main powertrain is a 5.6 liter V8, and it was going to a 7-speed, before that a 5-speed, and now it's a 9-speed automatic transmission.
Exactly, yep.
And there was the Titan XD, but they didn't specify XD in here, and I don't
No.
think that would be part of this list anyway.
And you know what? The XD, especially the diesel, had some reliability issues.
It did.
They had some DEF system issues. And in general, it just wasn't a high seller as far as numbers.
Right.
So I think, but you know what? What else? People who buy Titans, and we've talked to several of you, they keep them for a long time.
They are really good trucks. We've said
Yeah.
it before. We don't regret saying that they're just solid trucks. They're fairly simple in certain ways, but they certainly are quite good. And proof of that has to do with the fact that its mileage, which is 295 miles.
Yeah.
So
It's about 233.
233 plus is their average. I mean, that is really remarkable.
That means you could see ones, with higher mileage as well.
Precisely.
So number 17 on our list is a familiar truck, which kind of makes sense.
And once again, a truck.
Yeah, it's a Toyota Tacoma. So yes, it's a segment's leader in terms of sales, and it's a reliable vehicle in history.
They've known to be bulletproof. Now, Andre and I both agreed that the 4-liter, which preceded this current generation powertrain, is the most rock solid of all powertrains pretty much ever. I mean, that is a really, really strong engine. Just
And
last
it was backed up by a 5-speed.
Exactly.
In fact, our coworker and colleague Grant just purchased a 4Runner. Well, I'm not going to spoil the list, but the 4Runner still uses the same power plant.
Exactly.
4-liter with a 5-speed.
So with this Tacoma, because we're talking about the past 10 years, we are talking about that 4-liter. We're also talking about a 2.7, and we're also talking about the new V6 that's currently
And by the way, the
used.
2.7, the 4-banger, it's not very powerful at all. It's slow,
No.
but it doesn't die. It just keeps going and going and going.
If you get the right one, there are a couple out there that have had some issues, but for the most part, yes, that 2.7 is a well-known powertrain to be pretty damn bulletproof.
And the average miles lifespan is 235,000 miles, a little bit over that. So now we're into 235,000 mile range. Now, number 16 on the list is the Honda Odyssey. This is kind of a surprise.
Well, not necessarily. I find minivans to be pretty strong, especially this one doesn't have any gimmicks. It's not all-wheel drive. It's not turbocharged. It doesn't have a hybrid power system in it. It is basically a simple V6 hooked up to a proper automatic transmission powering the front wheels.
If it ain't broke, why fix it?
Exactly.
Yes.
And Honda's been known to be the performance leader just in terms of overall driving performance with their van for good reason. That V6 is one of the more powerful ones that's out there in its class, and it's just a solid van.
And here's an anecdote I have about this van.
Please.
I've met several families. One of them is related to my wife.
Okay.
So her uncle and their family. And I also know a friend here in Colorado who, for example, a father had an Odyssey, and then their kids grow up, and the kid also buys an Odyssey. So it's like, you get this bug where one Odyssey and then another one, and you keep it forever.
It's a family odyssey. Let's move on to the next one.
What? Wow.
That's pretty good.
235.8 thousand miles is the average for the Odyssey, which is a lot of miles still.
Now, but here's something really interesting.
A cousin.
Yes, it's cousin. Based on the same platform, using some of the same powertrain components, is the Honda Pilot, and that's the next one on this list.
Yeah, and also just under 236,000 average lifespan miles. And I think the same reason, right? Same power plant, same powertrain, but now all-wheel drive is available too.
Now, I actually know somebody who has one of the older ones from, say, 2015, 16, something like that. And they had some oil consumption issues, and there have been some bulletins here or there about it, but for the most part, really solid SUV, and in its class, one of the most reliable.
Yes.
Okay, let's
and the
move on.
Pilot was just over 236,000 miles. Number 14 on our list is now a GM vehicle.
That's right. It's a GMC Yukon, a proper SUV. It means that it has a frame underneath it. It is a truck underneath, and it has a ton of miles. And this shouldn't be too much of a surprise for a lot of you guys. Some of these vehicles, these GMCs and Suburbans, and we will be talking about some of these other ones, are known to be just seriously robust and last forever.
Well, here's an anecdote. Our very own Brendan, who works with Tommy on the TFL Classics channel, he had a heavy-duty GMC Yukon XL with over 300,000 miles.
Yeah, didn't something happen to it?
Yes, it broke down in Nebraska.
Like in the middle of nowhere.
Yes, but it was at 300,000 miles. So it should be on this. No, but I'm saying it should be on this list. And it is on this list.
It is on this list. So let's talk about the mileages on it.
Yeah, so the average lifespan on the Yukon is 238,000.9.
That's where Brendan went wrong. He went past that.
But that was a big block, 8.1 liter. That was a beast of an engine.
It was a beast of an
by the way,
engine.
the engine didn't die. The transmission didn't die. It was the front differential that died.
Which is really bad that died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it stops you in your tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because just the drive shafts wouldn't spin.
Yeah, there's just no way to move it.
So number 13 on our list is the next vehicle. It's the Toyota Sienna. So it did beat the Odyssey in this case.
It did, not by a huge margin, but the Toyota Sienna went through some major changes recently. First, keep in mind, the Sienna was for a while one of the only minivans you could buy in the United States that had an all-wheel drive option. It also, for a while, had a V6 and a four-cylinder option. Now, They've moved to a hybrid, which
Yes.
is not even an option. That's how you get it.
Yeah.
And the option is to get an electric all-wheel drive system. That is essentially an electric motor powering the rear wheels. And recently we drove one. I actually hooned one in a parking lot in snow, and it was fantastic. It has an excellent drivetrain, especially for the Rocky Mountains. It was getting amazing mileage. It had decent power, not as powerful as the Honda, but a very good van nonetheless. And so we're talking about all those different vehicles combined into one to make this list.
And also Sienna and also Odyssey and some of these other SUVs are super road trip vehicles.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they're rentals, sometimes they're not rentals, sometimes just family vehicles. The Sienna average lifespan is 239.6 thousand miles.
I mean, that is a really incredible number. And one final note on that, minivans are really underrated, and they are the most utilitarian vehicles you can own. If you're not into seriously going off-road, and if you really don't need to tow a crazy amount, those are worthwhile vehicles to look into, especially if you have a family. Okay, let's move on to our next one, because this is huge news. Because,
yes, number 12 is Toyota 4Runner.
and we have somebody at TFL who now owns a fairly new one.
Yes, Grant, I mentioned it already. Grant purchased a 2018 model of this.
Yeah, which is exactly the same as the 16, 17, 15, plus the 19, 20, and 21, 22, and probably 23.
23 as well.
It doesn't change.
They haven't changed it yet.
No, why?
Yeah.
I mean, it still has, I think, a 5-speed and
Yes.
a 4-liter, and it's just a
So
beast.
name another vehicle, and I don't know how much time we have, but I think it's one of the only vehicles still being production with a 5-speed automatic.
I cannot think of any.
I mean, everything else is either 8-speed or
CVT
or CVT
or
or
9-speed.
9-speed or 10-speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is quite amazing, but it's also long-lasting.
Super long-lasting. They have a good reputation for a damn good reason. Now, this is another vehicle that over time has changed. They had 4-cylinder versions. They even had a convertible with its first generation. Well, convertible, a removable top.
Yeah.
They had a turbo for a little tiny while. They had a V8. But the V6 4-liter in this particular, guys, is really the long-lasting beast out there. And it's been around forever, and for good reason. It is a solid, solid truck, a fantastic truck. And if you look around, you will still have a hard time finding a used one for less, for cheap, because they're just not.
And this is why they keep their value.
That's exactly it.
Absolutely.
They just keep going.
Absolutely.
So
So
the mileage?
the mileage is 244,665 miles, and just by a hair, number 11 truck beats it. It's the Ford Expedition,
Which really
is next.
surprises me, actually, because I thought that some of the older powertrains in there weren't really that robust, and I've been proven to be wrong. And I've seen them on the road, the older generation ones, all over the place.
Yeah, I think that the first generation. This was like what, late 90s, early 2000s. Those were beasts.
Yes.
Because you still see them.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why. I think that's why it's on this list. It's because those original ones just don't die.
They had the Triton V8, didn't they?
Yeah, and I mean the Triton V8s, had their issues,
Yeah.
of course, but because they were solid, kind of frame-based, truck-based SUVs, I think they just kept going and going. And going.
I've always liked them. I've always wanted to take either first or second gen and turn it into an overlanding vehicle and have some fun with it. Never had the opportunity to really do it yet.
But you did it with an Excursion, so
Yes.
that's almost the same thing.
Almost the same thing.
So the average mileage was just over the 4Runner, 244,682 miles average lifespan. Now, number 10, we're in our top 10.
This shouldn't be too much of a surprise. A lot of you already know how solid this vehicle is.
Toyota Highlander
Hybrid.
Yes. They've been building hybrids for decades, and it shows.
Actually, it's in its class. It's one of the oldest hybrids in its class once again. And these things are just rocks. They are solid. I'm not necessarily not that fun to drive, but they do the job. And Toyota was one of the first to master having an electric motor running the rear wheels. And this was one of the first vehicles they did it on, the original, the second generation Highlander. And it's just been solid. And everybody I know who owns one, I know quite a few people who own them, have rarely complained about their overall robust nature.
And they had different V6s, right? The 3.3 liter and the 3 liter, I think, was in the original generation.
They even had a four-cylinder or two that went
and
through.
a lot of those engines are well regarded.
Yes, they
It never had the 4 liter. Of course, that was the 4Runner.
No, you wouldn't
truck,
need something that absolutely massive in there.
trucky engine. But the average lifespan mileage is 244,994. So up.
Almost 245.
Yes. So now we're number 9 on our list. It's another Toyota. I'm almost tired of saying Toyota now.
Well, Honda and Toyota really do dominate this list. They do.
Yes.
And for good reason. Look, everybody says, oh, you guys talk too much about them. Well, if we know they build a solid car, they build a solid car. And here's the proof.
Avalon.
Avalon.
Bam.
Which is now gone.
Yes, so it's also rest in peace.
Yeah, it just went away this
But
year.
it did exist over the last 20 years.
It
and
did.
10 years.
And it was just a really good car. Not everybody's favorite. A lot of people called it Toyota's Buick, and I would agree with that. That's a really good way of putting it. Solid car, lots of room. The hybrid version of it, once again, very, very solid powertrain. And up until last year, it was the only vehicle in its class that was being produced with a V6. Now that all falls to the Camry, which is now the only vehicle in its class that has a V6.
And the thing about the Avalon is it's a little bit larger than the Camry.
Yeah.
But also, like you said, the Buick is not a bad thing, a comparison, because it's just big and comfortable.
Not only that,
Right.
but Buick doesn't build sedans anymore.
Well, there you have it.
And apparently Toyota's stopping that as well. Well, at least with the big sedan. Okay.
Average lifespan was 245,710. And number 8 on our list is another Honda.
Big surprise here. Now, this is a Honda I'm very fond of. I almost bought, but I couldn't quite afford. And that's a Honda Ridgeline. It is an excellent, excellent pickup. Andre and I both agree it's one of the most comfortable in its class. It is definitely well suited for people who really don't want the full-blown butch pickup truck with all the frame and everything else, but they need to do minor pickup things like tow under 5,000 pounds or hold. I think it holds like 1,700 pounds or something like that.
The payload is tremendous on it.
And they now have recently updated it over the past couple of years with a 9-speed automatic transmission. And with that transmission in its current V6, which is the only way it comes, there's no other engine available currently, it is now more efficient. So it's now one of the more efficient vehicles that exist on in its comparison group.
For mid-sized trucks,
Right.
absolutely. And you know what else is I think is striking? The Ridgeline beat the Tacoma on this list. It beat many others, including the F-150 and many other trucks.
And it's a lot of trucks that didn't make this list.
Yeah, so this is, and we'll mention those soon.
Yes, we will.
So kudos to Ridgeline.
Yes, kudos.
It's really good.
248, almost 249,000 miles. So
Average lifespan for these puppies.
it's pretty damn good.
Next, number 7 on our list is a very familiar vehicle and probably, the shuttle of the country, right? Which is the Tahoe.
Yep, Chevy Tahoe. I mean, we were basically talking about this earlier with the GMC, but
Yeah.
essentially they're all the same vehicle, very similar in terms of powertrain and overall layout. Very solid vehicle. One of the most reliable vehicles that is built by General Motors, and for good reason.
Yeah, let me show a picture. And here's what I want to say. The Tahoes are also really popular kind of rental fleet vehicles and also the shuttle companies. That's why I said
Oh, they
kind of
use
the
them all
shuttle.
the time.
So when you go to an airport, what do you see most often?
Black ones.
Black Chevy Tahoes running around. And because they run around airports, lots of miles.
Lots of miles. Also government vehicles.
Yes.
The government who's camped out in front of both our houses. I mean, they're definitely driving in dark, blacked out Tahoes.
With pizza delivery signs on the side?
No, really, no. They don't have. No, they don't have anything. That's the whole point. Government, no markings. Let's move on.
250,000 average lifespan.
Okay.
Number 6 on our list is another Toyota.
Toyota's shocking.
Yes.
Actually, shocking works in several different ways. Describing this because this is the Toyota Prius.
Yes.
Which has recently been updated into an absolutely beautiful car. I never thought I would say that about a Prius, but we are referring to the older generation Prius, which Toyota proved, without a doubt, that they can build a very robust, capable, long-lived powertrain, even though it's more complex because technically you have 2 different modes that are moving you. And they have proven it beyond a shadow of a doubt. These are super reliable cars.
The OG Toyota Prius, like you said,
It's terribly ugly.
Well, it wasn't the prettiest, but it was also pretty small.
Yep.
It grew over the years, of course.
It's much bigger car now.
But they use kind of conservative, battery chemistries with nickel metal hydrides.
For most of them, not all of them.
Yeah, and that proved to be reliable.
Very reliable. And the Prius has also gone over a few things as well. Now, remember, there was also the Prius C, which was, for the while...
Oh, dude, I love the Prius
That was a
C.
great car. It was the most affordable hybrid that that you could buy at the time. Also, Prius did, I think they're still doing it, at least this year, all-wheel drive was an option. A very similar idea of like the other hybrids that Toyota produced, but it's actually a very different electric motor that powered it, which was much more efficient, but like 8 horsepower or something. So not a whole lot of power going to the rear wheels. Regardless, the Prius is a very proven vehicle, even though none of us really find it very thrilling to drive.
But maybe we will, because the next generation Prius looks to be promising.
That's right. And remember, the Prius Prime exists, which is a plug-in. And this new Prius that's coming out has a plug-in option, a Prime, and it's going to be fast.
And also, like I said, powerful and good looking.
Crazy.
So number 5 on our list, we're getting into the top 5.
Did you say the mileage of the Prius?
The Prius average lifespan was 250,601 miles. Now, the next number 5 is GMC Yukon XL.
Big surprise.
So, I mean, it's just a Yukon that's a suburban size.
Yeah, longer.
And why is the longer version, maybe people keep them longer?
I have a theory about that.
What?
A lot of people out there tend to think that for some reason the heavier, longer GMCs and Chevys and all those other ones are actually more efficient. Some people think that. They tow better, which I wouldn't disagree with. And they just seem to be a better family hauler that are more logical over the long term. That could be the reason why.
Well, you took a GMC Yukon Denali diesel on a road trip recently, a couple of years ago. And comfortable, efficient.
1,000 miles, just absolutely melted away. Wonderful, wonderful vehicle that got extremely good mileage. Those diesels are great.
So there you have it. Its average lifespan, 252,000 now.
Okay.
Number 4 on our list is a truck. I'm so happy a pickup is in the top 4.
It is in the top 4, but this is, I believe, the last pickup. And this should not come as a surprise for those of you who have been following TFL Truck and some of the things we've covered, because it's the Toyota Tundra, which is known. Its reputation is actually, this is the truck that can go 1,000,000 miles. And guess what? A few of them have. More than a few. Yeah.
Literally.
1,000,000 miles.
Yes, the 4.7-liter V8.
And the bigger one.
And the 5.7, very, very reliable motors. And I'm showing you, of course, the latest generation, which is now a twin-turbo V6.
Right.
But even in the V8, those were the workhorses of the Tundra world.
Yeah, a lot of people who are looking for trucks, we tend to say, if you're looking for your first pickup truck, a first-generation Tundra is a great choice.
Just one Achilles heel is the efficiency. The Tundra was never known for great efficiencies.
Yeah.
So because bigger engines and heavy vehicle.
Yeah, that is very true. But if you're going to buy a pickup truck, deal with it. Couldn't help.
Yes, 256,000 miles is an average lifespan for a Tundra in this study. Number 3 on our list is another big GM dude. It's a Suburban, so very similar to the Yukon XL.
This is the last Chevrolet on the list.
Yes, and noteworthy, I think we can say it now, there's no Silverado on this list.
Which is a little unusual.
No Sierra on this list.
That I wasn't expecting either.
Yeah.
And Ram's not on this list. There's actually a few vehicles that I kind of thought would at least be on, well, anyway, it doesn't really
Some
matter.
Jeeps, maybe? A Jeep is not on this list.
No Jeeps.
Am I spoiling the top?
No, let's do the top 2, though.
So the Suburban average lifespan is 265,000 miles. But now number 2 on our list,
Big jump.
think, big jump, but also it's a oldie but goodie, right?
Yeah, and this is one that I think would be questionable for some of you because it really was discontinued a year ago.
Yes.
But according to this list, it's part of a deal because it was 2022.
It existed, yes.
Right, and that is the Toyota Land Cruiser. In my mind, one of the best Toyotas ever built.
We owned the 2008 version of the Land Cruiser for at least a year.
Oh, at least.
We actually made it into TFL Pro. We would try to do a Tier D Pro.
Well, I think we did a decent job with that.
With a slight lift, bigger tires.
And we put a wrap on it.
Also a snorkel, which is very important. But here's the thing about that vehicle. That vehicle, I think we had about 160,000 miles at the time when we owned it several years ago. But it felt like brand new.
Other than the seats, which looked like they were a little
there was a little bit of wear on the seat.
But otherwise, everything else was solid.
The doors are solid. Everything was just like a tank, once again. And We did damage a mirror, outside mirror.
Yes.
And we went to a local mechanic, Charlie, and it was $700 to fix a mirror. So it's really solid, but it can be expensive to repair.
And expensive to buy. Even used ones with 250,000 miles on them, you're going to have a hard time finding one that is inexpensive. But if you're looking for really the rig that is known for being the granddaddy of serious luxury and capability, this is it. This is better than anything else built out there. Obviously, look how high it is on the list.
And average lifespan, 280,000 miles. But it's
Damn.
not number one.
No.
Number one is, drum roll, and I did not expect this, it is the Toyota Sequoia.
the Sequoia, for crying out loud. Toyota absolutely dominated this list.
Oh,
They had, like, what, 7 cars on this?
something like this.
Now, I know Sequoias are strong, and I think that part of that has to do with the fact that essentially it's a Tundra underneath, and it's just decent engineering. I'm not a huge fan of the first generation Sequoia. Off-road, I felt that that system was not the easiest to use, and it would sometimes the nannies would kick in. But they made improvements over the years. It is the most solid purchase you can make if you're looking for just a family mover that can just last.
Yes, and we reviewed several of them.
My God.
We also had kind of Dude, I Love My Truck videos with the Sequoia, even two-wheel drive ones, four-wheel drive ones. And I think just people love them and keep them. And that's why it's number one on this list at 296,000 miles average.
Remember, this is a somewhat hand-built vehicle, which I believe now, the new one, which, by the way, we're going to be getting very, very soon.
Oh, yes.
The new one is now built in a different facility in Texas next to its brother. Am I correct?
San Antonio, correct. And mass-produced now in huge quantities. They're going to boost the production, I think.
I'm going to say it right now. I actually like the Sequoia better than the Tundra.
Well,
And it's usually not that way.
okay, well, we'll have to find out in the next video when we drive it.
Yeah, and more importantly, how long it lasts.
Yes. So thank you for joining us. I hope this list was really meaningful. It was for me.
Yeah, let us know in the comments below what you think and whether or not you want to add a car to the list.
Sounds good. We'll see you next time. alltfl.com, once again, is where you'll find everything automotive.